Okay, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have requests for council action. Several for the Finance Committee, 1371 Crime and Airport Liability Renewal 2013 and 14, 1372 General Liability Insurance Renewal 13 and 14, 1373 Amending Ordinance 3713 U.S. EPA Brownfield Grant, 1374 MCRC Staff Pay Scale Addition, 1375, Final Resolution, ODOT State Route 18 and 57 resurfacing. 1376, JET Agreement with Lafayette Township. 1377, Transfer Request. 1378, Budget Amendments. 1379, Memo of Understanding, State Road Railroad Dual Crossing. 13, do we have an 80? Or we just put it?
We do, it's down lower.
Oh, it's moved down there. 1381, IT contract with Medina City Schools. 1382, sodium chloride rock salt purchase agreement. And then we get to 1380, which goes to the Water and Utilities Committee. It's the utility rate review recommendation. First item we have is 1322, purchase of a truck for the water department. Mr. Coley.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Thank you for putting us back on the agenda. This came to light as the mayor reads everything in detail. And we were not part of the CUE, which is the Community University Education Purchasing Program, which is similar to the state bid. We were cited, or Medina Township was referenced, but Montrose Ford dealership thought it was Medina City. So in short, that council ordinance that was passed on February 25th allowed the city to become a member of the CUE purchasing program, which is similar again to the state bid. So this quote allows for that. Now this vehicle is not on the state bid, so that's why we chose to go through the CUE contract once we were back in as a member. The vehicle is a couple thousand more, actually $3,000 more than the regular pickup. The bill assures me, and I talked with the sales rep, did a little research, that the money saved in gasoline and fuel over the next several years will surpass that extra cost and serve the water meter department well. Jared has a similar vehicle, and we've called around. University of Akron has gone to these little transit connects. They seem to be a well service vehicle that services well.
Questions?
I was just going to add, as Nino said, about Jared's use of the same type of vehicle for the cable, and he's very happy with it, and the utility that it provides. And having the equipment inside is suggested here in one of these readings, I think will be an added benefit.
Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 1371, Crime and Airport Liability Renewal. Mr. Hubert.
We have an agreement with Gallagher Sharp to provide airport liability coverage and crime policy coverage as a result of the fact that when we last bid this, these were the best prices in terms of premium. The renewal amount for airport liability is $4,140, and the renewal amount for crime policy coverage is $3,240. Because these separate policies came in at a lower price, we have a separate contract with Gallagher for the crime and airport liability and a different coverage, a different insurance coverage on our general liability. That's why they are two different ordinances. But again, because the price is the best price for the coverage, recommended the city renew these two policies.
Just one question, if we're taking them both at the same time, just a general liability insurance renewal, which is the next one, $113,378. That's the cost for.
That's the cost for 2013, 2014. It's up. It's an increase a little bit.
What is the total coverage? Is that 10 million? Or what does that cover?
That was
20 million? 30 million. We got 10, 20, 30 here.
No,
I'll take the 30.
You're betting on go to.
The new one's 38.6. what it is, if I'm reading correctly.
38, 671, 2298. All right.
General liability coverage is $3 million for each occurrence.
Mhm.
I do.
All right. Anybody have any questions regarding the crime and airport liability renewal? Yes.
So we're really approving the combination of the crime cost and the airport liability cost?
Yes.
Okay.
And that contract is with A.J. Gallagher. Then the general liability contract is with Wells Fargo.
So the estimated cost.
John, if I could, we received the airport liability on March 20th
Mhm.
to begin April 1st, and the Wells Fargo, March 29th to begin April 1st. So therefore, we're asking for the emergency clause with both. Seems to be the way the insurance companies do it, wait till the last minute, get it to us, to get the best rates we can, but then it's kind of a rush to push them through. Apologize for that.
And there's no gap in coverage, we're still.
Right, that, actually, because we're into April already, we had them send us an email. They told us verbally on the phone it was okay, but then I had asked them to send us an email saying they would continue the coverage, and then we would retroactively pay back to April 1st, just to make sure we weren't in limbo there.
Move to approve the general, or the crime and airport liability renewal with the emergency clause.
Second with the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then, of course, we have 1372, the general liability insurance renewal for the airport in general for $113,378, as was mentioned, and the coverage is associated therewith. Same issue with respect to the emergency clause. Anything else you want to add beyond that? Okay, anybody else?
Move to approve the general liability with the emergency clause.
Second including the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Next item is 1373, amending ordinance 3713. Mr. Durham.
It's just an account number change is where it should be.
We passed this last time, so.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item we have is the 1374 MCRC proposed staffing pay scale addition. Mr. Wright?
This will probably be the first and last time I ever asked for an addition, added to pay someone less money, just so you know. It's actually in regards to our group exercise instructors. They start at 22 an hour and have for the last, I think it's almost the whole 10 years that we've been open. And just recently, in the last 2 years, we got it so they could get merit increases of 10 cents a piece. The highest person still at only $22.20. So this is getting to where we could start people at a lower rate, the $18 rate instead of the 22 automatically. That way, we're not bringing on someone, two brand new instructors at the exact same rate that the old instructors have been there 10 years are still making. So that's all it is, adding the coach. We can bring in someone at a lower rate. I would prefer if we could ask for the emergency clause only because we have 2 employees we want to bring on now as group instructors. So we're just waiting for this to get passed to do it at the $18 an hour rate.
So I guess we're modifying the pay scale from 22 at the beginning to 18.
Yep. No,
Are we eliminating that scale at all? Or are we just adding a new scale?
There's already an RC 33. Right now, our instructors are at a RC 34. We're going to put them onto an RC 33 also. So it'll be 2 pay scales for the group instructors, so they can start at the RC 33, which is already where the WSIs and the Learn to Swim private lessons lifeguards are.
And the current employees will stay at the RC 34.
Correct.
Everybody got that?
Sounds good.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second including the emergency clause.
And of course, I know this would be in your budget because you wouldn't otherwise ask. Just ask. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 1375, next item, final resolution for ODOT State Route 18 and 57 resurfacing. Mr. Patton.
Thank you. believe at the last meeting or the meeting before that, we passed the preliminary legislation. This is the final legislation. Essentially what it is our agreement to help ODOT fund the resurfacing at 18 and 57. That project's going to happen this year. The total project is a little over $2 million estimate. City's share is $616,690.
Anybody have any questions? This again, we're resurfacing the entire Route 18 within the city limits and 57.
Correct.
When is this scheduled to begin? When's this scheduled to begin?
It'll be this year. I believe it's later in the summer, starting in July or August. I think they told me.
And that'll give us enough time to do what we want to do around the square?
That's the plan.
Okay, good.
Yes, Mayor.
Again, we received this on March 29th, and we need to have it all fully executed and approved by May 3rd, so the emergency clause was requested as a result.
Move to approve with the emergency clause?
Second, including the emergency clause?
Any further discussion or comment? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item number 8 is 13076, the formation of a Joint Economic Development District, or JED, with Lafayette Township. Ms. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier this year, we met with, we meaning you and the mayor and myself met with Brian Mason, the Lafayette Township trustee, with regard to forming a joint economic development district. Some of the territory that was initially discussed was the tech park out by the University Center and the property out at Chippewa Lake. And subsequent to that meeting, the Lafayette Township trustees have held a special meeting and discussed it amongst themselves, and they all unanimously agreed that they would like to form this JED. I talked to Chuck Reel, who's an attorney with Walter Haverfield, to see if he would be interested, if we decide to move forward, would he be interested in the putting the agreement together, and he said he would be, and he's not given us a formal quote yet. However, he did estimate anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000, although I told him we would not hold him to that at this point. It was just for discussion purposes.
We won't hold up to that?
And, will be less, right?
Well, I guess here's the question. I mean, and Brian, welcome, Township trustees here. I would assume that we would want to have a starting point is with the Montville JED and make modifications to that agreement, which would probably be more efficient.
Correct.
Some of the items, probably, of course, that are specific to the Montville, like the SUMA, the SUMA Center and things like that, will probably come out. But the basis of the agreement, I believe you received a copy, is probably what we're looking at.
That's what we were thinking.
Right. And we probably could start at that agreement and just make modifications from there. It would probably be more cost effective.
Right, and that's the way I explained it to Chuck, and
he still said 10 and 20,000?
And he agreed with that. Well, he said because
Those lawyers.
there's unknown quantities, unknown meetings, and things of that nature. So I guess the only other question that I had, and maybe it's more of a question for Brian, is there other commercial areas that we should be considering to put in the JED up front, so we don't have to have that additional cost later on down the road, or
Well,
we
I
just pretty
guess-
much set on these two territories?
Well, I guess the question would be, in order for the two territories to become part of the JED, the property owners of those two territories, and I know the tech park's easy, but the property owner of the Chippewa Lake area, they would have to be willing to sign a petition to join. Because just by forming the JED doesn't mean you're in it. You have to sign a petition to become a party to it. I don't know.
Correct, and the only really thing that's in play is the University of Akron. It's the only.
Right now.
It's the only player that's physically there.
And the additional property that was identified with it, because there was supposed to be a development to happen down by Chippewa Lake that never.
Correct, I believe that's in some legal.
Is it?
I think it went bankrupt.
So that's going to be the expandable area.
Correct.
Identified
That'll be
currently.
the future.
So the tech park will be, you can control the, we can get that in the JED as far as filing the paperwork, and then identify the other as the additional potential area for the JED to go into. And who knows, in the future, if there's others, you always can amend it. I guess you never know where people are going to locate or what the zoning code or the future plans of the township would be for location of.
Correct, and it was something we would be willing to talk about. What we
Sure.
did right now is we have CRAs in both these areas already, so they were already predetermined on a map as,
Already there.
you know, CRAs are ready to go, and it's really the only buildable areas in Lafayette Township.
And the helpful thing is we did with Montville is that by joining the JED, there's some, not great, but there's some financial benefit to the property owner to get some reimbursement of some cost. However, it also helps the township and the city, and an income tax will be charged within the area. So if there's a CRA and a property abatement for a certain period of time for the infrastructure that's constructed, at least there'll be some money coming back to the township to offset those costs, which it seems to be working well with Montville so far. And any way we can try to recoup costs to lower the tax burden on the residential people, we're trying to do it. So I
They're
appreciate
already
the-
ahead of the game because they already have the CRAs in place, whereas in
Montville,
Montville,
they're
it's
getting the
reverse
C.
we're trying to
Right.
work on right now, so.
Well, that's good. So I think the next step would probably be looking at the agreement we have with Montville, seeing what has to come out, seeing where we start from. And I would assume that we should probably modify that document the way we think it is and then give it to the lawyer, and then we could hash out whatever's left, because that may be the most efficient way to do it, since we already have the agreement in place.
Correct. I also spoke with Kimberly. I could bring it back to the board to split the cost with you.
Well, what would happen is the cost would go, the JED would pay for the cost. So whenever the money comes in, that would be the first thing paid off. So it doesn't really matter, because ultimately, it won't cost either of us anything. The property owner who comes in, or the construction that occurs, would pay for that cost at some point. So it's not out of pocket for either jurisdiction, so that's a good thing. It may take a while, but at least it won't be out of pocket.
Yeah, but shouldn't we have something in place to pay the law firm in case they can't wait?
Sure, well, yeah, I think, and I guess the timing of this, I think if we work on this, probably by summer, maybe before break, it could be a possibility that we could be completed with it. We already have the drawing. It should take only a couple months to go through this, but then we have to have the hearings and whatnot, the public hearings on it. But I think, before midsummer, probably we should be in a position to do that. So I guess if we could work with the township, whatever we have to have, maybe we'll have a meeting to talk about, once you look at the document, what we want to change or whatnot, we could probably have a meeting to discuss that and go from there. Are you going to take the lead on this? Is that?
I am taking the lead on this.
So we will meet with you and go through it in the document that we have at Montville, see what we need to keep, what we take out, and what we need to add. Is everybody okay with that? I don't know if there's any really formal action we need to take here, except to make sure everybody's on board with entering into the agreement with Lafayette Township.
It's a win-win.
But it works so far. I mean, I think for the surrounding townships, it's the way to go. It's to generate additional revenue that we otherwise would lose.
Has Medina Township showed any interest at all since our meeting?
Not since the meeting, no, but they've showed interest, it was about a year, 2 years ago. We've had meetings with them, but really no movement as far as.
More talk and less action.
Yeah, we
appreciate Lafayette.
Oh, sure.
It's going to help. It helps both parties, and I think
Yes.
there was a little hesitancy at the beginning, but with Montville and how successful that's been, I think it's
No,
going
it's
to work great.
It's a win-win for both.
Right. And it's not mandatory. That was a big concern, that was mandatory. All right, we appreciate you coming, and you can report back to the trustees that, we'll start working with you, get an agreement, and get the lawyer. Mark?
I just want to comment, I appreciate you guys coming on board with this. I think hopefully this will open up more doors in the future of joint, not only economic impact, but maybe future projects that will enhance not only our industrial area, but yours as well. Whether it be, there's numerous, and I'm going to bring up my trails pitch here, but there's numerous parks that spread throughout our industrial areas that I work over in Medina's, and I think an enhancement would be putting a exercise option for employees throughout our industrial parks, or depending on what that's converted to. I mean, I know it's a technology area, but with Chippewa Lake and the trails through there, and county parks owning the trail up on the north side of Lake Road, north of 42, and with the Lester Trail even farther north than that. I hope one day we can sit down and see what we can do besides being on the west side of town, making that area more attractive for future development.
I agree 100%.
Anything else from anybody? All right, thanks. We'll get together and move on that. Next item we have is 1377, fund transfer for the service garage. Mr. Durham?
Mr. President, this puts into effect the ordinance that we passed last council meeting. The ordinance last council meeting was to amend the payment for the garage from one fund to another, but because it's in a prior year, we can't just make that as an adjustment, we need to make that as a transfer.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 10, 1378, these are budget amendments. We have, let's see, I guess this is just 1378. It's the first one, 2013-013, the service garage. This is just the follow-up.
This is the appropriation for the transfer for the ordinance.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 7696 is the Brownfield grant.
This is a reduction, the total without this is above the resources.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Finance 2013011, Liberty Woods Multi-Purpose Trail.
We received this as from a bid guarantee. It's available now to us when we eventually build this trail. I want to appropriate it so we can put it in a purchase order and keep that availability.
Mark?
If we agree to this, does that mean that developer is basically off the hook of putting anything else in? I mean, is that the cap of what they can contribute, or?
Correct, yeah, this was an agreement passed by council where they had to pay for a certain length of this trail, just a portion of the trail where it cuts through, and this is the cost, the value of that. So they're paying this so they can just...
But when we calculated how much that cost of the trail would be, who came up with the $9,200? Us or them?
Their engineer came out, produced it, we reviewed it, approved it.
And this only represents 25% of the cost. Is that correct? If I remember correctly, the agreement was they would pay 25% of the cost of the trail. I think I remember that number from somewhere.
Right, you're right. Well, how long was the trail supposed to be?
Well,
This is a section of it.
yeah, this is just a tiny little, I mean, it's
Well, that's when we
150 feet out of like a 3,000-foot proposed
Okay.
trail.
Yeah, is this just
No, that's
between Abbeville and State? Is that portion that connects
It
that
doesn't even go all the way
subdivision?
to state. It basically just cuts, like I say, a couple hundred feet through there.
Is it an open field that's on Liberty
It's
Woods?
the trail to nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, it was, it's gonna hook that subdivision up so that they don't have to walk out on Abbeville Road to get to the trail. And there's also an area, if I recall, that we have land available to put a parking lot on Abbeville Road.
Right, they did
Yeah, right.
dedicate, I think, an acre or two
Yes,
to us for that.
right. So we have a little land over
Are we
there.
committing to leaving that 9,200 somewhere so it's not spent and it goes towards?
That's what this appropriation, and we'll put it in a purchase order for this trail. And I know the exact timing of when this is going to be built could be a while from now, but this purchase order will just carry, so that money will be available when we're ready to build that trail.
And maybe we can get a grant and this could be the matching funds. for
This will
that
be our
grant.
portion, right?
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item we have is 2013012 Firehouse Museum.
This is what's left of the purchase order for the Firehouse Museum. Because it's a prior period purchase order, we need to reappropriate the money, because when you close a current year purchase order, that appropriation is still available. When you close a prior year purchase order, that appropriation goes away because it was from a prior period. We need to replace it.
And I know there was a meeting with the Arcad Commission to make a determination of what to do with the firehouse. And I know we originally appropriated $16,000 a couple of years ago, I guess.
18.
Was it $18,000 and the $6,600 left? What was the resolution with the Arcad Commission? Do we have any?
Jim's on it, but Tom Doyle did give us a really nice tour of the Firehouse Museum on the weekend, and it was, I'd never been there, and it was absolutely incredible. I mean, some of the stuff he has, it was so interesting. I think that people want to see it, and I think that, from talking to Roger, I think that they want to go ahead generally with the plan that they had, and then incorporate some rotating exhibits and work with Tom to try to bring some of those things in, the fire things, but keep it a museum that's basically the history of Medina. But
And when's that
I don't know,
gonna
Jim,
happen?
You're on the commission.
Is that this year?
Well, I don't know about that. Actually, all we decided at this point was to go over and see Tom's collection and then talk about how we could work together with Tom to make sure we get this one up and open, but I don't know that I heard a date that it was gonna open.
Well, I mean,
The push was to get it done this year, but I don't know that we have an exact date or a timeline.
What is the status of the building? Is the lower floor complete? How's the elevator?
The elevator is operational, the lower floor is not complete. That's what this 6,600, and we're not even sure if that was enough, because they wanted some screens and some displays and some other things. What we talked about was having Tom build his own shelves and bring some of his own Medina-related fire nozzles, equipment, alarm systems, kind of show the history and what their applications were. And he's got, at his museum on Smith Road there, he's got enough that he could rotate that stock himself over a number of times. Our plan was, once the downstairs was done, the Career Center was just a little busy with a couple other projects, including our pavilion. But our hope was to have them take a look at the upstairs then and create at least a meeting room, if not a meeting room, and the possibility of a couple office spaces to possibly have CDC up there, Main Street Medina, to avoid having our 30,000 going to rent instead of the programming. So we're still trying to juggle those things out and working with Phil Schnur to actually develop concept plans once we get an idea of what's going on there.
So timeline for the upstairs, probably a couple of years out at least?
I would hope not, because we would only have to purchase the materials to do that. All the labor and the drawings, all of that would be done by them. It's just when you're using free labor like that, you're kind of at their will of when they can do it. So we're kind of waiting on Bill to tell us when a good time is and go from there. They got involved with the Home and Flower Show and a couple activities at the school where they were building walkways and having a fashion show, and they couldn't do as many things as we were asking them to do right away.
Have we reached out to maybe some other volunteer base to help with that too, if they're too busy?
We haven't, no.
And I know one of the things that we talked about at Archives was it had become sort of a storage area on the first floor of the firehouse with some Christmas decorations, things like that. But I know Nino took care of, within the next day or two, getting it cleaned out, which was also what was needed to kind of get things moving again on the first floor. So.
I don't know, who's that?
Look at one person.
Christmas decorations.
Tie Drive, right?
Yeah.
Basement.
The base, right, that's what we want. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 1379, memo of understanding with the State Road Railroad dual crossing reconstruction. Mr. Pat.
Thank you. This is the first of two we'll be submitting to council. We've been talking with the railroad quite a while about an agreement for the Smith Road crossing, because we want to do that during the Smith Road reconstruction project. They actually brought this to us, said, well, what about State Road as well? We agree with them, it's in terrible shape. We had some concerns about closing it in conjunction with our Smith Road project as part of the detour, and just didn't see how that could work. They came back to us and said, if we got this approved, that's why I'm going to ask for the emergency clause, and got it to us by the middle of April, they could make it happen before the project started, so this would be done and out of the way. It's a 50-50 cost sharing agreement, or memo of understanding.
Pat, I see here that we're using a designated contractor, and the estimated project cost of $150,362. Your professional opinion, is that estimate pretty close to what you think it would come in at if we were going to go out? And I mean, obviously, we have to be involved.
Yeah, remember, it's their contractor. We don't hold the contract. And I do.
So 150 seem close?
Yes. Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
What's the status of Guilford?
Status.
It's in good shape.
Any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause?
Second, including the emergency clause.
All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 1381, the IT contract with the Medina City Schools. Mayor?
Yes, sir. We had not had a contract with the schools, and in discussions with the schools, we thought it was better rather than, our prior contracts, I shouldn't say that, our prior contracts had merged the SRO program and the IT, and because of the technology changes and all of the additions that we're doing, it made sense to us to separate the two. So this is detailing what our IT expectations are and all of the changes that we've done along the way. Paul was gracious enough to take a look at the contract, as well as Darren, Mr. Huber, Jim on behalf of the schools with their IT folks. And so we've got this ready to go now. In the future, we'll bring to you their expectations. We're waiting on input from the schools, their expectations of the SRO programs, our expectations of the SRO programs. Then we'll have two separate contracts to deal with both of those.
Questions?
Mr. Quinn, because I work for the school district, I'll be abstaining on this one.
Okay, we'll have a motion, if you can make the motion in a second.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to state that I did cover a couple of topics with Darren today, and my questions concerning ongoing improvements with the operating systems and the iPads were answered. They're all inclusive in this agreement.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
One abstention.
And one abstention. 1382, the last one on the agenda is the sodium chloride rock salt purchase agreement. Mr. Popoli.
Thank you. Appreciate you putting this on the agenda. This is the participation agreement with ODOT for the winter season of 2013-14. We just received the notification from the Department of Transportation. The letter was dated March 22nd. We received it in the office the 3rd, April 3rd. It needs to be turned around in their office by May 1st. So we're asking for the emergency clause with respect to next year's contract.
How was this year? How'd we do? With the salt purchase?
We used a little more than last year, where we weren't quite as, we didn't consume near what we consumed in the past years, but it was more than last year. So in last year's winter season, we didn't meet our quota. We're declaring, if you could attach the contract, 4,500 tons, and this contract that ODOT has spelled out is 80-20. Whatever we declare, we have to at least purchase 80% on the minimum side. And we didn't do that last year, so we had about 452 tons that we had to keep in storage with an additional fee, but that won't be necessary this year, given that we've met our minimum.
Good.
Well, as strange as it sounds, I guess I'll make a motion with the emergency clause for next year's sodium chloride.
I apologize.
Second.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well, that's it for the finance. Anything else to come before the finance committee? I know we have an executive session that we can go into, but anything else?
Make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of pending litigation.
Second.
We will not be returning to take any action with respect to the pending litigation, so there'll be no action taken on that, just an update of what's going on, I believe, so. All in favor to recess into executive session?
Aye.
All opposed? So okay, we reconvene into finance committee. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion on adjournment? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned.